it's going to go tonight. We're going to introduce our herbalists. They're going to give us a little bit of information about themselves, about maybe what their passion is about herbal medicine, what it is that they specifically do as a herbalist or in their practice, the types of things that they may work with. And then we're going to go through and they're going to introduce their chosen herb for today, for Herbs for a Good Day. And I also want to emphasize that they're picking one herb because that's what we can do within the confines of a 1-hour video. But there's so many herbs that we can be working with. And yeah, so just putting that out there. We're picking one of many, one favorite child out of many favorite children. Okay, so why are we talking about herbs for peace of mind? And a big thing here is like that we kind of want to convey as herbalists is like, what do herbs have to offer at times like these? So yes, everyone is, freaking out about the virus and, what are antiviral herbs and what are, expectorants and what are, how can we support our lungs and all this kind of like, da, 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 da. There's all this fear, right? There's fear, and that fear affects our nervous system, and that nervous system affects our ability to have a well-functioning immune system. So there's many things that herbs can do to support the body that way, calm and ground the body, support that stress response. And so that's kind of a little bit of what we're doing today. So what we want to also talk about, though, is that, especially for those of you that are newer to herbal medicine and kind of getting interested, is that herbalism is, it's a science, but it's also an art. And it's something that it's not like there's one magic plant for one magic condition. And herbalists study for many years and go through a process of doing, apprenticeships and gaining clinical hours so that they have the ability to skillfully work with you, your body, your patterns, and your conditions. So everyone here today is a registered herbalist. They all happen to be members of the Ontario Herbalist Association, but there are several different professional herbal associations. To become members, you need to have a certain level of herbal education and complete a certain number of clinical hours, that is working with herbs and people together, because it's a whole other level of understanding. There is learning herbs in a book, there's studying herbs, there is growing herbs, there's making medicine making. Those are all important pieces of the puzzle, but working with plants and people is its own other level of learning, experience, and wisdom. And I'm really happy that all of you guys are going to be sharing that with us today. So herbalism isn't an academic construct. It is a living, breathing, something that you're going to keep doing and studying for the rest of your life. Like, I'm not joking when I say it's a rabbit hole. It's a fun thing. It's a fun thing. So what else do we want to talk about? Is there anything else I want to touch on that I haven't touched on in my intro? So I guess I also want to mention that herbalists don't diagnose, they don't treat, they don't prescribe, educate. And basically what herbalists do in working with plants and plant medicine is they're working with your specific body, your specific constitution, your specific kind of set of symptom patterns. They're treating the person, not an illness. And this is a big piece of the puzzle. This is why there's not necessarily just one herb for immunity, one plant for immunity, because that might look different for 3 different people who may have the same condition, for example. So that's an important distinction to understand, and that's something that registered herbalists can offer, is that they have that experience and they understand those nuances to better be able to match plants to you specifically for better outcome and success, if that makes sense. So I know I used to work in a health food store. I love health food stores. They're great, local resources for a lot of things. There's some really well-trained people in some of them, but there's not always herbalists that work at health food stores. So if you have, like, for example, a sleep condition and you go to the health food store and you grab a bottle of herbs off of the shelf and it didn't help you, sometimes people are like, well, I tried herbs and it didn't work. Well, those herbs maybe didn't work. But that doesn't mean there's no herbs that are ever going to work for you. And that's where working with a registered herbalist might be applicable for your situation. It's not that there's no help for you. It's just that that particular formula didn't help for you. I see also a lot of people coming in and they want to buy like a tea or something to help them sleep, and they don't understand how to make a herbal tea and a herbal infusion properly. it's not the same. So there's a lot of like moving pieces for like, I'm like, how often are you taking that tea? What are you taking? How are you preparing it? It's not a magic bullet. So there is a science and an art to how we use herbal medicine effectively. And that's, I think, what everyone wants to convey today, as well as sharing their passion for plants and what it is that they do. Sound good? Okay, so let's get into introducing our herbalists. Today we've got Abra, Marianne, Victor, Tamara, and Penny, and I'm going to introduce everyone one by one, just read a little bio for everyone. They're going to expand on what it is that they do as a herbalist, and then we're going to go. Yeah, someone here says, I work in a bulk health food store. So true. People will try one thing and think that one thing they tried covers every base that every plant could. So true. There's just a lot of nuance in plant medicine, and that's what I'm excited to share about today. Okay, so first we're gonna start with Abra Arneson. She's a clinical herbalist who currently practices from her home because of the current situation. She lives just across the river from Ottawa, where she normally has her practice, and in the beautiful Gatineau hills of Quebec. So she's the author of the book called The Herbal Apprentice, and she offers a really excellent herbal apprenticeship program as well. So Abra, tell us about yourself. Oh, remember you're muted. Unmute yourself. It's so hard to forget to remember.
And I don't do well on mute either.
I know.
Okay, so I'm a clinical herbalist. So I've been practicing for about 18 years now, and I went to Dominion. The person who's thinking about going to Dominion, and I work a lot with chronic illness in clinics, so I see a lot of chronic infection. I do some work with cancer. I have previously worked quite a bit with women health issues as well. But I love working with kids when kids have problems and helping them out. And I like working with the old people too, and herbal medicine for our seniors and our kids is a great choice as well. So yeah, I like working with everybody, and I work really holistically, and holistic is a word for me that means we work with relationships. So a health condition doesn't happen on its own. It happens in relationship to the rest of the body and to the rest of your life. So yeah, I'm really interested in herbal medicine as a practice of holistic medicine in terms of relationships.
Oh, I forgot to unmute myself. So thank you, Abra. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for being here and offering to help facilitate this whole discussion. Thank you for the work that you're doing. So now our next herbalist is Marianne Beacon. Marianne has a clinical practice in herbalism, Reiki, and Bowen therapy. She teaches all of those subjects as well. She lives and works in Peterborough, Ontario. She's also an avid medicine maker and diving into the world of spagyric medicine making, which is really fascinating and fun, and I enjoy following that along. Marianne, tell us about yourself, Marianne.
Thanks, Dion. Yeah, so I guess what I want to say today is I feel like learning about herbs is a lifelong process. I started my journey into learning about herbs about 25 years ago, although I've been just in practice about 12, formally as a clinical herbalist. And I've studied with a lot of people and spent a lot of time learning about herbs and also working with people. And I feel like one of the things that we can offer as herbalists that the medical system just hasn't been allowed to is that we can offer time to people. And in that time that I spend with an individual, I really get to know them. And I've spent a bunch of time over here getting to know plants, but on the one-to-one relationship with the person, like just to build on what Abra said, is we are building relationships with our clients and getting to know them and hearing the story. And often when people have a chance to speak about their health and their life that way, it's very rare that they've been able to talk about that all in one place, and just be honored for who they are and how they know themselves. And often in that conversation, the awareness comes up of how these situations have developed, and then often once the awareness shows up, like the body is kind of teaching us what needs to be healed, and that awareness like helps us to get to the root of the problem. And so then my job becomes being the bridge. I'm the bridge between the client and the plant, or the series of plants that we're going to use to help that individual.
That's awesome. That's a great way to explain it. Thanks, Marianne. Thanks for being here and sharing with us today. So our next herbalist is Victor Cerrone. Hi, Victor. Victor is a practicing herbalist based in Toronto, Ontario. He runs and manages his clinic and dispensary there to ensure that the medicines are prepared with highest quality standards. Victor also practices Marma Nade Chikitsa, an ancient system of rehabilitative healing originating in India. His influences include Rudolf Steiner's system of anthroposophical medicine, traditional Western herbal medicine, depth psychology, and Ayurvedic and Tibetan medicine. Welcome, Victor.
Thank you. It's great to be here. Just to add a little bit about what the practice of herbal medicine means to me. We were talking about what it means to treat the whole person, what a holistic system of medicine is. So this entails, consideration of dietary factors, lifestyle factors, physiological imbalances, environmental circumstances, emotional factors. And so when we're talking about holistic treatment, we're understanding the parts and the personas that are contained within an individual person. And we want to try and arrive at a state of homeostasis, a state of balance. And for me, a healthy organism is one that is in balance with itself, as well as all of the different dynamics and impulses that go into creating and differentiating that organism. So that, again, has to do with the food that a person is eating, the environment that they're in, lifestyle circumstances, all of these things. And one of the tasks that I see as a task that's mine as a herbalist is to combine all these parts as best as possible into a kind of harmonious whole. And when the parts are combined into a harmonious whole, then the individual can be in balance with the world that surrounds it.
Thank you, Victor. That's awesome. Thanks for explaining that. And our next herbalist is the lovely Penelope Boudreau. So Penelope is a busy lady. She's an educator. She's an international lecturer. She's a writer, product development specialist, herbal conference moderator, organizer, and a registered herbalist. So she's worked with herbs over the past 2 decades in her career, from field to bottle in all aspects of the natural products industry. She's also the founder of the Ginkgo Tree, where she facilitates a Ginkgo Tree herbal program, offers an apprenticeship program, produces a line of herbal teas. She nurtures an at-risk United Plant Saver Medicinal Botanical Sanctuary, which is an awesome thing to look into. I know, I think Abra had said she was looking into doing that as well. And home of Back to Your Roots Herbal Retreat as well. Welcome, Penelope.
Thank you so very much. First of all, I wanted to thank everyone for connecting with us today. It's wonderful to connect with people in our herbal community. A lot of times we're isolated and we don't know who our peeps are. So this is a great way to meet people maybe in your area as well that you could get together with. But I thought I would just mention how really my heart's work. So even though I work with plants every day for medicine and for my job and for my income, but my heart's work is outside in the field, planting, nurturing plants, coaxing them along until they flourish. And the work in my sanctuary, it is so meaningful to me. So I wanted to encourage people, if you're a gardener and you wanted to look into helping our at-risk plants, it would be a wonderful thing to do. It's really rewarding work, and we all have a purpose on this life. And for our gardening friends, this would be a wonderful purpose for you to work at. I've actually worked for 24 years professionally. I started in the fields working, loving every minute of it. To think I got paid to pull petals off of calendula, it was like I cannot believe I do this for free. Why would someone want to pay me to pull petals off of a flower? But it has been so wonderful to start at the ground, getting your hands dirty with the plants, planting, growing, making medicine, and just moving and seeing where your plant journey will take you. Because today, where I sit, 24, 25 years later, I can't believe that I'm doing the things that I do with plant medicine, and I love it, and it's so exciting. So, and who knows in another 10 years what will be happening. So it's really a thrilling ride. Plants take you on a thrilling ride. So I just encourage you to plant, make your own teas, and have fun with this journey. Thank you.
Thanks, Penelope. Thank you. Appreciate your passion and your love for plants. So next up we have Tamara Hawthorne, and I just lost my page. Oh, somehow I skipped over Tamara. Tamara's supposed to be, you know what? I think it's because the way I'm seeing you in my view. I apologize. I messed up the order. So Tamara runs a herbal clinic. She's based at her farm in Prince Edward County, Ontario. She offers holistic health support to individuals working with wild-crafted and farm-grown herbs. She also regularly teaches herbal medicine classes and loves to lead wild plant identification walks for anyone who's eager to learn. And we know there's lots of people eager to learn these things these days. There's kind of a longing to reconnect with the plants in the natural world. Thank you, Tamara. Welcome.
Thank you, Dion. Yeah, Tamara Hawthorne. Well, my name's Tamara Siegel, but it gets confusing because on Zoom I have my business is Hawthorne Herbals, and I put myself up on Zoom as Tamara Hawthorne. So I'm connecting all the names, the plants, and me, and so anyways. But yes, Tamara Siegel, Hawthorne Herbals is the name of my herbal business, and yeah, so I'm here at the farm in isolation, enjoying where I am, and really grateful for all the plant medicines and for the opportunity to have them kind of really step up to the fore now when there's a lot of need and a lot of interest at this time. I'm glad to go last because in introducing, because I got to hear what everybody else said, and I can just say I really loved hearing what all the herbalists are, how they're conveying their relationship with the plants and the work. All of you, I connect to all of those ideas. I have often kind of thought of myself as sort of working as a bridge between plants and people, and what else? The idea of really working holistically, really taking the time to get people's stories in working one-on-one with them. And also over time, and it does keep going, it is a lifelong process, learning the stories of the plants, working up close with the plants and seeing how they grow, where they grow, how they adapt to the environment that they're in, what other plants grow around them, what do they look like, how do they behave, and kind of, through all these details, getting to know their stories and their character, and finding relationships between them and what we see in different people when we get to know their story and their character. How do you adapt to your life situations? What are your big challenges? What are your big strengths? And kind of finding connections in that way. And so that sort of, has a lot to do with the nuances of working with plant medicine and people, in a really up close, day to day, dedicate your life to it type of way. And then at the same time, it's like you can be outside and you cut yourself and there's a plantain leaf growing nearby, and you pluck it and you gratefully, hopefully, and you chew it up and you put it on your cut, and it will heal it and stop it from bleeding. And plant medicine can act very quickly, very acutely, without you knowing that much about it as well. So you can work on different levels with it. That's all I've got for now, I think.
That's plenty. That's wonderful. And I love how you explained like really kind of a little bit more about like that dance and learning how to match the plants with the people. That's really beautiful. Thank you. Okay, so what we're going to do now is like everyone is going to get into presenting their chosen herb for Herbs for a Good Day today. Last session, there was a lot of questions about like dosing and how much and how do I do this and how do I make that. So Abra is going to speak to that after we introduce all of the plants. She's going to talk about the general rule and how there can also be no general rule as well. Okay, so Abra, we're going to swing around back to you. I know that you are going to share with us a little bit about Eleutherococcus, and tell us what you got.
Okay, Eleutherococcus. I love Eleutherococcus. I think it's a great plant for our time. But I'm supposed to start with jokes. So according to Penny, I'll always start with a joke. So now, I want you to herb your enthusiasm for this joke. Okay, thanks, Tamara. I can see her laughing. Okay, here's the joke. What did the spider plant say to the cactus?
What?
You're looking sharp. Okay, enough with the jokes. Now it's time for some sage advice. Okay, on Eleutherococcus. Bad jokes, sorry about that. Okay, sometimes you hear Eleutherococcus called ginseng. If you want to sound like you kind of know what you're talking about, don't call it Siberian ginseng, call it Eleutherococcus. Eleutherococcus is not actually a ginseng. Ginsengs contain ginsenosides, and Eleutherococcus doesn't have any ginsenosides. And there's several ginsengs. Eleutherococcus is not one of them, so just put that aside. So Eleutherococcus is an adaptogen. So adaptogens are plants that help us adapt. And right now we're on a big journey of adaptation. And I suspect that over the next 10 to 15 years, this journey of adaptation is going to continue as we continue to face challenges. So the adaptogenic herbs are really, really useful, and they're really useful for a good day. Okay, so Eleutherococcus, the key word for me is marathon. A lot of politicians and journalists are talking about this is a marathon, this isn't a sprint. And Eleutherococcus is for marathons of all sorts, whether you're actually running a marathon or your daily life is a marathon, or you're taking care of someone who has a chronic illness and that's a marathon for you. So anything that requires prolonged resilience and endurance, this is a great herb for you at this time. Okay, so keyword is marathon. So how does it work? It works by moderating the cortisol levels on the adrenal glands, from the adrenal glands. And like, this is a whole beautiful physiology. Eleutherococcus affects every part of your body because of its work on the adrenal glands. And that goes from your blood sugars to your skin, to your bones, to your menstrual cycles. It affects everything. And so it's a really important, adaptogens are really important herbs. There's a list I'm going to read you of some of the things, a few of the things Eleutherococcus does, and this is proven through clinical studies. But never think that a list of actions is actually the herb, okay? Those are two different things. So first of all, it's ergogenic, so that means it wakes up the libido, but it also means it improves our ability to sense. So I used to wear glasses all the time, and when I started taking Eleutherococcus after about a year, I didn't need to wear glasses other than for reading. And so it improves your visual acuity, it improves your hearing, it improves your sense of touch, and in that way it wakes up the libido. It also gives you energy, which is good for libido. So, you know, a little extra time in bed is always a good way to start a day, if you want to have a good day. It also supports cell repair and tissue damage through stress, and that also includes the stress of environmental toxins. It's antiviral. It moderates the immune system, so it will wake up the immune system. It will help. It definitely supports a depleted immune system, a depleted immune system. Um, it's amazing for balancing blood sugars. And it's not, you know, when we talk about blood sugars, we always have to be careful about talking about type 1 and type 2. Type 1 is a whole nother situation. And I always say, you know, those people are very special. Their health is, yeah, so I never make generalized claims. But if you're like hypoglycemic, up and down a little bit, Eleuthero will help you. If you get stressed and you have to eat because your stress messes up your blood sugars, Eleuthero is good there. It deepens your sleep, even though you take it during the day. It's great for mental focus. If you have long-term mental focus that you need to do, like you're studying or you're working on a new book, like someone I know. Yeah, and then there's all the reasons, and that's just if you're healthy reasons. And then in chronic illness, there's a whole nother plethora of reasons to use it. But that doesn't talk to the nuance, and we're talking about nuance of herbs. So how I think of Eleutherococcus is this. So one of the things about stress is it causes a fatigue, tiredness, foggy brains, can't get out of bed. And you have like different ways people experience this tiredness. Sometimes they're tired and it goes into insomnia, and they're just not sleeping because of the stress. In that situation, I do not use Eleutherococcus. I choose a herb called ashwagandha, which is another adaptogen. I choose Eleutherococcus when you've slept 10 hours and you wake up and you're still tired and you can hardly get out of bed and your brain is really foggy, or you're sleeping a good 8 hours and you're still tired and you're dragging yourself through the day. That's when I go to Eleutherococcus. That's one of my signatures for it. Eleutherococcus is a stimulant. There's no question about that. Although when we talk about stimulants in herbal medicine, we're not necessarily talking about a plant that deplenishes your resources, like coffee. It's a stimulant that deplenishes your resources. Eleutherococcus is a stimulant that also helps us rebuild our resources. So when people first start taking it in the morning, sometimes they can feel a little jittery as those cortisol levels start balancing out, which means your cortisol levels are coming up if you start feeling a little jittery. Usually that balances out within 2 days to a week, and then as you take your tincture and you feel good and you have energy for the day, and then when you go to bed at night, you have a good sleep. Combining this plant, my favorite herb to combine it with, but again, it would depend on the person I'm working with, is one of my favorites is the one we spoke about last week or last Tuesday, oat seed. I love Eleutherococcus with oat seed because the endocrine system, you can't really separate it out from the nervous system. So you bring in a nice, nourishing nervine like oat seed, and it just like marries those two herbs together, so you have that calm, nourishing effect of oat seed with that building resilience, stamina of the Eleuthero, and they're a really nice balancing. Yeah, so not native to this area, although will grow very easily and spreads, you know, well. It takes about 3 years if you're planting it before you're going to get medicine. You can harvest the leaves and make some medicine with the leaves before you harvest the root. It won't be as strong as the medicine from the root, but you can do that. So obviously medicine is mostly in the root. It does come from Siberia. I love that. So in the part of the boreal forest that's just before the Arctic tundra, and that's the same area that we get rhodiola, and panax ginseng also grows there. So you just think about those people living up there, how much endurance and strength they needed to survive in that climate, and they bring us these great adaptogens that help us deal with challenging times. So yeah, I've never tried growing it from seed, but I get my plants from Richter's. So that's what I have to share about eleuthero.
Thank you, Abra. That's fantastic. And I have someone, of course, asking which form is best, tincture or tea?
I always use a tincture. I've never used a tea. But you know what? Like, if you think about the traditional people that were in Siberia, they were probably making really strong decoctions of this, and not tincturing up. So yeah, if you could try a really strong, and it's not a bad tasting herb either. So, you know, a really strong decoction, throw in some oat seed and some peppermint, and you'd have a nice morning beverage. But you would have to either steep it overnight in a thermos or decoct it in the morning. Yeah.
And how long can you take it for, given that this is like one of those marathon adaptogens?
How long do you want to take it?
Mm-hmm.
You can probably just keep lowering your dose though.
Okay.
Like, you lower your dose. It's not something that you have to take at high doses. You just it's a tonic. So nice low dose, steady. And it's good to take it for like 6 months to really, you know, balance out those sugars, rebuild immune systems, get your sleep sorted out, all that.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful context, because sometimes people are like 3 months, like 2 years. So that gives a little bit of a guidance for like how that should be looking. Thank you,
Yeah.
Abra.
Oh, you're welcome.
Now, I just wanted to mention, because I don't know if I mentioned it earlier, obviously most of you have been with us before and are catching on, but if you have any questions, just pop them in the chat. We'll answer them if they're herb specific right after right after our herbalists present each herb. And then if you have any other just general questions related to herbs for a good day, or any of the herbs we talked about, or any of the concepts, pop them in there and then we'll address those at the end. So yeah, if you have a question, ask. Christy is asking, so is it a ginseng? And you're saying no, it's not a ginseng. Yeah. Okay. Thanks for clarifying. Okay, perfect. So now we have Marianne, and Marianne is going to talk to us about motherwort.
Thanks, Dion. Actually, I just wanted to pop in and say one of the ways I use eleuthero is to get a powder of it. And I learned how to make Zoom balls from Rosemary Gladstar like a long, long time ago. And I used the powder in combination with a few other herbs with this. If they're all powdered, then you mix it with a bit of honey and your favorite nut butter, and then make these little Zoom balls that are just like little energy power pack balls. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Anyways, I'm just jumping in there on Abra's, but so this is how it happens. We just start talking and it just keeps going, right? It never stops when you get herbalists together. But I wanted to talk about motherwort. And the reason why I chose that is because right now, we're in a very uncertain time, and a lot of what we're normally used to doing has been sort of altered and changed, and there is a lot of fear, and I think a lot of people are experiencing anxiety, and some of that is going also into depression, and I think that there's a lot of really good coping strategies to work with anxiety that people can be utilizing, and but herbally we also have the chance to address this with something like motherwort. The Latin name of motherwort is Leonaris cardiaca, and I like to think of it as being my key words there is Leonaris refers to Leo as in the lion, and cardiaca is the cardiac system, is the heart. And so I think of it as the courage of the lion heart. And when we can bring in that courage, like the lion isn't really afraid of anything in particular, right? And the king of the jungle, right? And so if we can apply that to our own system when we are faced with these things that are really quite fearful, and we have a lot of information coming in that's also causing a lot of fear, and there's also so much uncertainty, that this is something that can be really helpful. Um, in 1798, Nicholas Culpeper, who was one of the first people to really start to put words on paper about our herbs, in that era at least, he wrote, "No better herb to drive away melancholy vapors from the heart, to strengthen it and make the mind cheerful, blithe, and merry." And to me, that sort of encapsulates what Leonaris can do, or motherwort can do for us. It has a very light and bouncy energy. It's very happy. It can be used for anxiety. It also can be used for depression. But I chose it during the day because we're faced in a situation where we have a lot of fear that we're facing every day. But it also is a herb that can be used at night for this, so it can be helpful for insomnia. And one of the key things that might trigger you to think about using this herb is if your heart is racing, if it's going into palpitations. I kind of think of that as like, there's fear and your body wants to run and your heart is getting ready to run, but you're not running, you're not able to. It's like you're frozen, but the heart is beating. And this can help to calm that. It's doing that in a lot of ways. There's some good minerals in there that are helping that, but it's actually a cardiac tonic, so it's helping to support the heart and feeding the heart and nourishing the heart. So this can be used for emotional fatigue as well, heart weariness. We're also, if we're faced with situations where we're having a lot of indecision or even a lack of willpower. So this really strengthens us at like a core level, at our heart chakra level. It can also be really helpful to use this after an emotional shock. And what it can do is it brings in or increases the feeling of safety and calm. It has a very mothering energy about it. It's kind of like a mother that is grounded and strong, and the one that will tuck you in at night and you feel safe. You can feel warm and safe with this plant. It's also called motherwort because it was used very a lot with people who were mothers, not during the pregnancy phase, but post phase. It's for like somebody who is responsible for another being who's facing fear and worry regarding that. In their mothering, they're very nervous and scared. So it was used for that. So after birth, it's not to be used during pregnancy. But it's also used very commonly in menopause. It's for when people have a lot of hot flashes, so and that anxiety that can come with menopause. There's a bitter component to it, so it's also helping the liver. And there are a couple of cautions that I would say. One is obviously not to use this during pregnancy, but I would also say don't use this if you're somebody who has a uterus and that uterus likes to bleed a lot. This is maybe a herb that you would avoid using, or use in like drop doses very, very cautiously, because it can just increase that blood flow. And if you're bleeding too much, it's not something you want to encourage further. In that case, I might consider using like a flower essence of it, so you're getting the energy of the plant without actually ingesting the plant with all the chemical constituents. So yeah, it's one that can bring courage, and we're facing a lot of changes, and I think courage is something that's really good to foster right now, and it helps us to face the realities better if we're feeling courageous and feeling supported than if we're in a state of fear. So I thought that this was a good one to bring for our daytime.
That's perfect. Yeah, that's a beautiful share, Marianne. Thank you. We have a couple questions about it. Pauline's asking, can kids use it?
Yeah, I would say, and you have to make sure to like always moderate your doses. Does anybody else have a reason why they would not use with kids? I would say like maybe not little tiny children.
Might have some problems with flavor.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a bit bitter.
Maybe combine it with fennel.
Or you can try using it as a glycerite, maybe. Like the tea is a little bit bitter, so I tend to use it as a tincture anyways, and then it's a little bit easier to mask. You don't need quite as much.
And someone else is asking, can you use it as a vaginal steam?
Ah, I haven't really delved into that topic too much, so
Fair.
I'm not sure.
Maybe not.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's totally fair. Okay, awesome. Thank you, Marianne. All right, Victor is going to talk to us about ground ivy, and this is a fun, abundant and wild weedy local herb. And I just want to mention, Abra had put up some photos. I think you forgot to show your eleutherococcus. So if you want to put up eleuther, you can put it up. But if a photo just shows up, it's related to the herb that everyone is speaking to. So go ahead, Victor.
Okay, great. Yeah, it's useful to have the photo because one of the things I want to talk about is observation of plants. And a simple exercise that we can all partake in, even if, like myself, you live in a concrete jungle, is to just observe a flowering plant every day for about a week. And you don't have to spend long doing this, but even 5-10 minutes, and just note the changes that you see. Going to the same spot, looking at the same plant day after day after day after day. And this is a way of training the senses, but also of learning to internalize the qualities of plants. And when we learn to internalize the qualities of plants, we're brought, you can say, to a deeper understanding of the essential qualities of life. And so these include birth, unfolding, growth, death, transformation and transmutation, adaptation, dynamism, rhythm, unitive creative expression, and many others. And these are qualities that we need to internalize in order to learn to live in right relationship with ourselves and with the rest of the world. So I want to talk about ground ivy and my own experiences of observing the plant. And I'm going to draw a little bit on the anthroposophical understanding. Anthroposophy is a science that was developed by Rudolf Steiner, and it simply means the wisdom or the knowledge of the human being. So ground ivy is one of the first plants to emerge in spring, and its presence, for me, signals the awakening of the regenerative powers that course through the earth. Ground ivy is a harbinger of renewal and announces the proliferation of new life. Ground ivy is one of the first herbs to overcome winter's holdup of life, one of the first herbs to hint at the ineludible and imminent fulfillment of budding and sprouting of the green world and the joy that brings. So just a short passage by Wilhelm Pelikan, who was a contemporary of Rudolf Steiner. Writing about ground ivy, he says, "It is the first plant of spring to transform the cosmic warmth given to the earth into warmth-filled plant nature. The leaves are still rounded, with indentations around the margins corresponding to the creative principles of the watery element." And so think back to that kind of movement that we saw on the edge of the leaf. "But they are filled with mild aromatic warmth. The foliage withstands the cold of winter. After the flowering period, the plant spreads widely through its runners. It belongs to the earth. The flower whorls, drawn down into the leaf axils, turn to the light. Leaf and flower impulses intermingle." So this is a beautiful description of what we can say is the elemental interplay that can be observed in ground ivy. So we have the rounded, indented leaves that are suggestive of fluidity and the creative principles of the water element, which yet possess an aromatic warmth that we can experience, especially when we allow ourselves to taste a little bit. So the water element is related to the powers of generation and the creative impulse. The fluid shape of the leaves is, for me, suggestive of vitality and coming into being of new life. And as Steiner points out, the more alive something is, the more fluid it is. The more dried out, the more solid, the more dead it is. And this applies not only to plants, but to animals and human beings as well. So one of the other things that Pelikan pointed out is that ground ivy possesses such vitality and warmth that it is able to withstand the cold of winter. And the herb can actually be found at some places even underneath blankets of snow. And it's best to harvest the herb for medicine when it's flowering, so May and June. But you could, if you find the herb in the middle of the winter, you could still explore it then. And so this intermingling of the flower impulses and the leaf impulses is something that I also want to touch on. So the leaves and the runners of the ground ivy serve as a kind of proliferative and expansive ground cover. It's kind of hugging and embracing of the earth. Yet the flowers are gesturing upwards towards the light, reaching towards the sun. And this is what Pelikan means when he says that the leaf and flower impulses intermingle. And lastly, I want to touch on this first line of Pelikan's description, where he says, "It is the first plant of spring to transform the cosmic warmth given to the earth into warmth-filled plant nature." And sorry, just a second here. I'm having some computer difficulties. Okay, here we go. So it is the first plant of spring to transform the cosmic warmth given to the earth into warmth-filled plant nature. So plants, as Steiner points out, are not yet able to form their own air and warmth organisms. Plants are aired through and warmed from their surroundings, with its breathing and its warmth determined and regulated by external cosmic processes. And this is the case with cold-blooded animals, right? So many animals and plants have this determination of external conditions of warmth, and are bound as a result to certain regions of the earth depending on their nature and the conditions that arise from the relation of the earth with the cosmic forces that Pelikan is describing here. And so this cosmic warmth that we can see embodied in ground ivy, for me, can make us aware of the warmth of soul that we ourselves possess. We experience both as human beings external warmth and an internal warmth, the warmth of soul. And this internal warmth, you can say, is what allows us to receive and to actualize the creative streaming currents that are the source of life and of its continued existence. And the highest form of warmth for Steiner is the warmth of enthusiasm, what can inflame the human will. And ground ivy, for me, is a plant that, as the first plant to transform the cosmic warmth into warmth-filled plant nature, gives us a sign, gives us a teaching, gives us a guide through which we can learn to tap into this inner source of soul warmth that we all possess. And so a little bit about the medicinal properties of ground ivy. Ground ivy is not as commonly used as it once was, but it is still a highly esteemed herb, at least for me and many other herbalists that I know. Culpeper, who was mentioned, he says that ground ivy is quick, sharp, and bitter in taste, and thereby found to be hot and dry. So its uses include inner ear issues, and I found it very useful for treating many types of ear issues. So for humming, ringing, loss of hearing, ear infections, middle ear issues. Culpeper says the juice dropped into the ears doth wonderfully help the noises and singing of them, and helpeth the hearing which is decayed. So ground ivy can also be used in head colds, especially those that involve the ears, so a blockage of the tubes, as a gargle for sore mouths and sore throats, for kidney weakness. Kidney weakness is often part of the remedy picture that calls for ground ivy. And of course, there's a relation in many systems of medicine between the ear and the kidney. They even look similar in terms of their morphological structure. And I found that even wearing a little bit of ground ivy on the ear can actually help if there's a lot of pain in the ear or hearing loss. Even wearing a little bit of the herb can be a beautiful way of helping that. Alma Hutchins has described a use of snorting the juice, and she says that this helps to take care of the most deep-rooted, long-established headaches. And so snorting things isn't so popular in many herbal medicine practices today, but it does have a long history in Ayurvedic medicine, in medicine traditions emerging from the Amazon. And nasal administration of herbs can really help to get medicine to the head quickly and efficiently. Ground ivy is used for a lot of gastrointestinal issues, digestive weakness, lymphatic congestion, detoxification. So ground ivy has a plethora of uses. And again, we're going to be using the herb not as a kind of, one size fits all, but this is just, these are some indications as to the kind of conditions that ground ivy can be useful for.
Thank you, Victor. Thank you. Now Tamara is going to share with us something a little bit different. She's going to talk about yarrow, about flower essence. Go ahead, Tamara.
Okay, thank you. So so I'm talking about yarrow, Achillea millefolium. So yarrow is a wild plant that grows, I think pretty much all over North America and other parts of the world as well. And it has numerous uses as a medicine. It's wonderful. It's magical, I dare say. And so Achillea, its genus, it has reference to the myth of Achilles. So Achilles, from Greek mythology, he was apparently dipped into a vat of yarrow, so like a huge vat of like yarrow tea. He was dipped in there just before going to battle to protect him. And his whole body was submerged except for the heel that he was being held with as he got dipped in, and then that heel became his vulnerable part because it didn't get dipped in the yarrow, so it got pierced by an arrow. And of course now we have the term the Achilles heel, meaning the part of us that is most vulnerable, that's most sensitive. So we can learn from thinking about this myth about some of the medicine of yarrow. Yarrow is very protective medicine. It protects us from particularly from wounds, and particularly from wounds from sharp objects. So it was a very effective protector for Achilles when he went to battle, protecting him from getting stabbed. And we see that his one vulnerable spot was not immune. It is protective for people from sharp objects. Traditionally, in old herbal lore, people that worked with sharp objects like carpenters and such would keep a sprig of yarrow near where they worked. And that was, considered to be a kind of proximity medicine. Just having the yarrow nearby would protect them from getting cut. Now, that's a practice that I tell people about, and I know lots of people now that work with sharp objects that'll do that, because why not? You could take a little sprig of yarrow and keep it nearby, won't hurt. Meanwhile, if you do get cut by a sharp object, yarrow is among the best medicine that we have available to fight infections, stop bleeding, help heal wounds. But today, what I'm talking about is not the herbal medicine, but more the flower essence, as Dion said. So flower essence is different from an herb, just to differentiate for those of you who aren't familiar. It's more of a vibrational medicine. It's more of an energy medicine. You're not really taking in the herb. It's not like taking a tea or a tincture. What you're taking is basically the energy of the flower, and you're capturing that and taking it in. So it's a bit more kind of esoteric. But the reason I chose to speak about it is because I've worked with the medicine of yarrow flower essence quite a bit in my practice, and I've just seen it work so phenomenally well for people as a protector. So not in the physical sense so much, but more as a protector energetically. So yarrow flower essence is really, really helpful for people who are sensitive to their environments energetically, for empathic people, for people who tend to be pretty intuitive, for people who, you walk into a room where, like, somebody's just had a fight and you can feel it and it affects you. And, or whatever energy is around you, you pick it up and you can take it on. And a lot of us, I think all of us do this to varying degrees. And for some people, it becomes really overwhelming. And sometimes it becomes difficult to know when you're so sensitive and kind of permeable to the energy that's around you. It's hard to know what you're feeling, whether it's coming from you or whether it's coming from, somewhere else that you picked up, someone else around you. So there they are, the yarrow flowers. So the yarrow flowers are white, and I think of white as being a pretty, it's an interesting color in terms of the characteristics of, like, in plant medicines, a lot of white plants will have some level of protective energy, I find. And then they also kind of, when we think of white in terms of, like, the color, it lets everything in, right? It's the most absorbent of all the colors, versus black, which keeps everything out. So it's like, it works with taking everything in and yet being able to have a layer of protection, kind of like, I think of it as bringing this white aura, this white light around a person so that you can feel protected from your environment. You've got, like, this invisible shield, this white light shield around you. So what I have found in my practice is that particularly people who work one-on-one with people in often the natural health field, people that do, like, massage therapy or Reiki or some kind of, like, hands-on body work with people or energy work, where they are going to be really kind of up close, kind of intimate with people's wounds, with people's ill health, with their challenges, the things that they're coming to them for support for. And if you're doing that all day, first of all, if you're somebody who's chosen to do that with your life, usually you are somebody who's pretty sensitive to other people's needs. You're generally kind of a sensitive person. If you're doing that all day with people, you can easily take on some of that energy. And that's a really important thing that you need to learn how to work with and how to protect yourself with. And what I've found and what I've heard from so many people who do this kind of work and they struggle with this is that they'll find that they have more energy throughout the day because they are less bogged down with the energy of others. And it doesn't interfere with their ability to perceive anything that's coming up. So they can work with people, and sometimes people are healing and, like, dark stuff is coming up for them that's moving through. They can perceive that and work with it and not let it affect them. It's like they just recognize, oh yeah, this is coming through, I'm going to let it come through. Whereas before it would kind of sneak in and it would affect them, and it would take their energy. So I also have found that it's been really effective for people who tend to be really anxious, people who are so anxious that, like, they can't go to places where there are a lot of people. You go into a crowded grocery store and it's like, it's overwhelming and you can't deal. It can be really, really effective, like, profoundly for people like that as well. So a few more things. One of the things I wanted to mention about yarrow is that it's so it's known to be a protector. It has this protective effect. It is both physical. If you use the flower essence, it's energetic. That energetic protection seems to not only translate to, like, the vibration of people around you, but in people that have worked with this type of medicine. I've heard it being referred, like I've heard it being also being possibly effective in protecting from exposure to electromagnetic frequencies. So again, other energy vibrations that we don't see, but they can affect us. So, so that can be really helpful. When you make a flower essence, because you might not be able to find a yarrow flower essence to purchase, but yarrow grows wild all around, as I was saying. What you're doing is you're working with the flower and the elements, and you're drawing on all this energy. I mean, this is herbal magic, folks. This is like, this is a good example of herbal magic at work. You're combining all of these forces to create something that's really vibrational. So what you do is you have like a glass bowl or a crystal bowl.
I don't want to interrupt, but we're at 10:31 a.m. and I just want to make sure that Penelope has an opportunity.
Okay, sorry.
7 minutes. So I'm not cutting it off because I don't think it's important to talk about the process of making the flower essences, but I noticed that there's a few more questions and I want to make sure that Penelope has a chance to speak to her herb. Adbra can talk about the dosing, and then we can revisit that if someone has a question about the flower essence. If that's
all right, we'll get into flower essences at a different time.
Yeah, it could be a different time. So,
but I highly recommend yarrow flower essence.
If anyone has any requests for further, webinars like this format or herbs, like put it in the chat and let us know, and we can go there. So, Penelope, thank you, Tamara. That's beautiful. Yeah, we had some nice comments from there. But Penelope, let us know what you want to share about stinging nettle. Oh, and you are still muted, Penelope, so just unmute yourself before so we don't miss any of your juiciness. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I wanted to thank the speakers that spoke before me, and I think Gandhi said it best, and I'm going to quote, "If you give me rice, I'll eat it today. If you teach me how to grow the rice, I'll eat it every day." So really important for us to get educated. And as I find when I'm teaching, usually I learn as much as I teach, and I love to hear different things from different speakers. So this is a really great forum. So when we decided to do herbs for a good day, it begged the question to me of what makes a good day. So when I was a younger mother, a good day was when my kids didn't fight. It was like, woohoo, good day. But as you get older, a good day might be when you've had a great day at work. My husband this morning got a ticket on his way to work. That's not a good way to start your day. So we need to find ways of recognizing what makes us have a good day and to consciously and intentionally add those into our daily lives. And every morning we get to wake up with a fresh start where we can intentionally choose things that make a good day, like learning about herbs today. This makes today a good day. And maybe you'll be able to incorporate them into your daily life and start something new or continue on your work with herbs. They're important because they're here to support us and ground us. And, it keeps you to your roots, where then you can stand taller than all the other trees. So there's a very popular quote among herbalists, and it's, "When in doubt, use nettle." So sometimes when we don't know what else to reach for, what else to nourish someone with, what other tonic to give someone, nettle is a really good place to start. And because it's a good place to start, it's also a good place to use as a daily tonic. So Urtica dioica is the name of the Latin of nettles. It's one of our first plants to rise up in spring. And I walked back this morning. I got up extra early and went back to the bog, and I picked some nettle here. And I still have a little sting on my thumb to prove it. So it's just a great way to start the morning, pick a bit of nettle, make a cup of tea. I've been sipping on it. It's actually a really delicious tasting tea. It helps to revitalize the entire body, and it increases our overall health. It's chock full of vitamins and minerals, and most notably magnesium, calcium, iron, and even protein. A lot of people don't realize that you can also get protein from plants. So it's well at assisting and nourishing the body after long illnesses and prolonged stress. So it sounds like a perfect herb to me for these times. And I also wanted to note that it's really wonderful for pregnant and nursing mothers. It's kid friendly, and it's also pet friendly. If you powder it or make it in a tea, I've made it into a tea and put it in my horse's water. I've put it in my dog's water. I'll make it leftover tea in ice cubes and put them in soup stock, add them in my rice, all kinds of things. It's just a great way to hide healthy plant material in food. I used to have to do that when my kids were little. I hid food, you know, so either I'd chop it really fine or I would do all kinds of things so they wouldn't realize what was in the food they were eating. So it's a great way to sneak in good food for people. Right now, the harvest, so it's not ready to be harvested, as you can see, but it's definitely ready to pick. And so you can start using this now if you want to for teas. It's just beginning. So in a month or two, or within the next month or two, it'll be a great time to be picking that. The habitat and growing area, it grows right here in Ontario. Fortunate enough to have it on our property. But it's also found generally in waste places, moist soils, all throughout Europe and North America. And sometimes it likes partial shade, the edge of the woods. So it's something that you could easily find. So again, really high in vitamins and minerals. So it's nature's vitamin water. So even though someone has coined the phrase vitamin water, this would be a much better vitamin water. You could add a couple of those nettle cubes into your bottle of water and carry that around all day and have some in your water. It is great for people that are iron deficient, for having healthy bones. Just really, really good to add to the diet. But it also helps with the overall body system of health. So it helps the nervous system, it helps the liver, the kidneys, and the adrenals. So it just does a whole avenue of things for us. And when I was mentioning about the vitamins and minerals, the vitamin B specifically is our emotional balancer. So even to pay attention that you're getting your B vitamins, and this is a great way to get it at this time. It is a wonderful female ally through all phases of life, from puberty right to menopause. It's a uterine tonic. It helps with PMS, excessive bleeding, anemia, fatigue, night sweats. Just a really good one for all the females in our lives. It's excellent for pregnant and nursing moms, and also for your kids. Definitely, this is great. Think of when your kids have growing pains. This is a really helpful one. I'm not sure if any of you have kids at home right now, but it was really important for me to note that because some kids really suffer with growing pains. And it's just great overall nourishing. And it helps with blood clotting and preventing hemorrhaging during, hemorrhaging during birth, because it has high amounts of vitamin K. It's also a reproductive tonic. So that's really good to know if people are, anxious about getting pregnant. It's great for males and females. So also, sometimes many herbalists use it to flush out acid waste out of the body, easing gout and eczema and skin rashes. And it's also wonderful for allergies. So drinking this tea, if I had someone who had a lot of allergies, I would encourage them to start as soon as this plant is coming up out of the ground, or if you can get it sooner than that in dried form, and I know Richter's sells it, you could start to take that to get that into your system before allergy season hits. let's see here. Oh, and just fun facts that in years gone by, in days gone by, nettle was such an important plant that it also was used to make fabric. You know, it would be tablecloth on your sails. Ouch, and I just got stung again. I need to quit holding that. But it's just a great one. And I'm not going to go over all the medicinal actions of this plant because it just covers such a wide range of issues. So again, when in doubt, it is a wonderful one to use. And again, I always go back to that quote about let your food be your medicine and your medicine be your food, because nettles can also be added in any recipe that there's greens. Inviting this tasty herb into your kitchen is perhaps one of the easiest ways for your family to take advantage of it. You can replace spinach in any of your favorite dishes where you'd normally have it a bit, or sauteed to get the sting out of there. And also when you make a pot of tea, just having the hot water will make the irritation of the sting not active. And remember, again, you can add it to soups, stocks, whatever food you're cooking in your kitchen, basically. Just think outside the box when you're using our herbs. That's my thought always. And also leftover tea you could add back into the vegetable garden if you are starting to garden, because very high in vitamins and minerals. And maybe you want to plant some. You can buy stinging nettle and plant it in your garden. It's you'd want to put it somewhere where it's out of the way so you don't get stung. Or maybe plant it somewhere far away that you walk to be able to harvest it. I love it as a tea, and actually I have a lot of teas that I make, and I counted this morning, what do I have there? I have like 10 different teas that I actually add nettle into, so you can just use it in a variety of forms. So I think that that's all the time I have, so thank you very much, and enjoy a cup of tea.
Thanks, Penelope. That's a great, nettles is like one of those herb foods. So that's a great way to like think about incorporating all this nutrition into our day-to-day life. So we're running over time. I apologize. We are all very passionate about herbs and have a lot to share. It's 10:42 my time, 11:42 Eastern time. Amber, did you still want to touch on dosing at this time, or do we want to save it for future, or do you want
for another time?
Okay.
Yeah, we can save it for another time.
Okay. Do you want to answer a few questions at the end before we wrap this up? Does everyone want to stick around for that? How do we want to do this? There's mostly just a couple of questions about nettles. I think we've managed to answer the rest of them. For some reason, everyone's just lit up about nettles. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly have a look through and see if there's anything we can address quickly so that we can wrap it up, be respectful of everyone's time. Also, let us know if you want to see more webinars like this, and if there's any particular topics or herbs that you'd like us to address, and we will put it forth for consideration. Absolutely. Okay, so we had some questions about nettles. You can't be eating raw nettles, or you'll know why. It's for goats, it's not for people. They have to be prepared in some way. So Penelope, someone's asking, is it true that nettles should be harvested before they're knee-high when they're young?
Oh, definitely before they flower, but yes, younger is better. And just like even if you're thinking vegetables, I like anything that's younger. It's more tender, it's more flavorful, high in nutrients. So yes, definitely, that's a good rule of thumb then, even saying knee-high.
Someone's asking, is it necessary to blanch nettles if I'm using them in a pesto?
Yes, I would blanch them, or I would saute them, do something first to deactivate that sting.
Yeah, I find that even sometimes if they're dried and you brush against them in a certain way, you can still get a little bit of a sting if they're kind of fresh dried. So you want to just like kind of denature that sting as much as possible.
Although to note, I add dry stinging nettles every day to my smoothie, and I've never had an issue. So that's even interesting to
Yeah,
note.
no, I think that once it's all blended up, that's fine. I'm just talking about like after I've harvested the leaves, dried the leaves, and I've just touched them whole, like before they've been powdered or put them into anything, I've still noticed a bit of a sting. So um, I've been asking, do the properties get lost if they're blanched, and if they're just steamed a little bit, that just sort of denatures that sting and it frees up all the good stuff that Penelope was talking about, what nettles contain. So we have all these people saying, yes, this is awesome. We love it. Thank you. And Abra mentioned, yeah, and the root for the prostate. Nettle, like we could do a whole webinar just on like nettle medicine and how to use nettle and all the different parts of the plant, the seed, the root, and the leaf, all different medicine. And so Tamara just has a couple more questions about yarrow. Tamara suggested a particular form to purchase yarrow in tincture. Ideally, yes, make my own, but in the meantime, I'm not sure what that's related to, Tamara, if that twigs anything from what you were talking about.
To purchase yarrow flower essence, maybe?
I think maybe so.
Which I have to say I'm not sure. I don't know if there is a company that makes it. There are a few companies, the most popular one is the Bach flower remedies. Yarrow isn't included in that. It's kind of become known later than that. So I've only made my own, but if anyone else, I don't know, maybe some of the other herbalists know.
What's the company from California? They do the original line of Bach flowers, but it's the FES company, Flower Essence Society, possibly.
Maybe Marianne was just saying that Paralandra has it.
Okay, and then Paralandra from the States as well.
Yeah.
I know that the FES has, I think there's like pink and a white, and they have a combination, like a yarrow combination spray. So there is a question, this is a useful question. There's many varieties of yarrow that are bred for the colorful flowers in the garden. Is it just the white varietal that's considered effective medicinally and energetically?
I would say it depends on the medicine. My preference is to use wild yarrow when I can, but the colored ones, particularly the pink ones, I know have been used for medicine. But in terms of the flower essence, I would say for energetic protection, I would go with the white. But of course, I'm still learning. So.
Yeah, I think everyone has a different preference for things, and so I know I prefer like the white for tincture and medicine. The colors maybe I would play with for flower essences. Okay, so there's lots of questions, like last minute questions, but I want to wrap this up because we all have good days to get on with and carry on with. Again, if you love your webinar and you want to see a particular topic addressed or herbs addressed or something that you want to know and you want to pick herbalist brains for plant wisdom, please by all means request it. You can put it in the event, you can put it in the comments, and you can get in touch with everyone via our website. So again, that will be in the link in the Facebook event for how to find us on Instagram, how to find us on Facebook, how to look at our website for what it is that they might be offering for classes, apprenticeship programs, et cetera, et cetera. So reach out. I know that some of the herbalists are offering pay what you can consults. So if you're like, yeah, I'm really connecting with what you're saying, I have something I want to work on right now. Finances are a trouble. We can work with you on that. So reach out, connect. It's all about building relationships and connecting with the plants and connecting with plant medicine in a way that's ethical and sustainable and successful. Okay, so thank you everyone for being here today. Thank you all of our herbalists. Thanks to all of our great, awesome participants. And we really appreciate all of your comments and your participation today. This has been a great way to spend the morning and I feel like I'm set up for a good day and I hope that you all are as well. Okay, thank you. Ciao.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.